Hello, friends. I'm just pondering today's Reviewcap through my multiversal viewfinder. It's a deluxe model with PVR controls so I can pause and rewind. Still, I'm thinking today's episode might be a bit of a controversial one, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get through it, and then we can discuss. As always, the action is depicted using the Order of the Stick, Monster for Every Season cutout minis. Today's players: Neil playing Onion Buns Bumblestump, Neutral Halfling, Nathaniel swapping out Colin Bush to play Malachi Merrybrand, Lawful Fighter, George swapping out Shamil to reprise Youthful, Chaotic Magic User, Marcel introducing his new character Bartholomew, Chaotic Bard from the Advanced Old School Essentials options, and guest player Sean playing Crag Rockslam, Chaotic Dwarf.
That's a lot of chaos. I do hope nothing goes awry.
Onion Buns Bumblestump has been laying low at the keep, avoiding his former adventuring companions who, fortunately for him, have not been around. Colin has returned to his parish in Kleina for religious study, and Shamil has travelled elsewhere as well for the time being. Being freer to move around, Bumblestump has made the acquaintance of a new group who plot their fortunes at the Traveller's Inn like so many before them. Newcomer Malachi speaks of dog-headed men leading the tribes in the Caves of Chaos, while Youthful has heard that the bugbears in the caves fear dwarves. This is something that Craig Rockslam concurs with because dwarves are mighty, as he puts it. There is buzz among the keep residents about the upcoming King's Festival, a celebration of the last king of this land that happens every autumn in Stallenford, a town about a week away from the keep. The group is divided on how they wish to proceed, as Youthful points to the treasure map acquired on his last outing and pitches forming up and exploring the area where it's marked that treasure is secured in a hole in the oak, while others want to explore the Caves of Chaos. It's put to a vote, with Bartholomew the Bard literally singing his support for Youthful's plan, but Craig and Malachi pushing for the caves. They all look to Onion Buns to break the tie, and after a moment, he sides with the plan to explore the oak. Youthful attempts to find retainers, but alas, thanks to poor reaction rolls, none of the prospects are interested in working for him, so he decides to make a solo trip down to Kleina in hopes of finding retainers there. The rest of the group await his return. In Kleina, an unlikely chance gets him the service of Hakim, who agrees to the terms. En route back to the keep on the Borderlands, however, a random encounter check spells disaster, as a wyvern swoops down from the sky and snatches Hakim, carrying him off to his fate. La, 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 la. This being the result of a random encounter check from the Old School Essentials Wilderness charts. With Youthful back at the keep, the group heads out, trusting to Onion Bun's boasts about his navigation skills in the woods. This proves to be vastly untrue, however, and the group loses their direction in the thick woods north of the keep. The group attempts to get their bearings by climbing a tree to see over the tree line. They luck out, and Youthful is able to find a climbable tree that ascends higher than the others, from which he spots the watchtower in the east, which, according to the map, is south of the oak they seek. They make their way in what they hope is that direction. Unknown to them, they are nearing the lair of the Mad Hermit from the Keep on the Borderlands module, and the DM checks for an encounter with him, the dice deciding that they will meet him. The Hermit approaches the group, seemingly friendly, but this is a ploy, as he is simply distracting them from his pet Puma, who has positioned herself behind the team and strikes with surprise. Youthful is targeted first, but the magic user is torn to shreds before he knows what hit him. The team engages with the Hermit, who stabs Onion Buns. The Puma attacks the others, grievously wounding Malachi. Bartholomew takes a massive risk and speaks to the Hermit in the chaotic tongue, but if the Hermit speaks an alignment tongue, he shows no signs of it. Remember, in this campaign, alignment tongues exist, but precious few can do it. Also, it's a bit of a taboo because it denotes connection to otherworldly dangers. Very risky to reveal. unless you want a lynch mob coming after you. Musically inclined Bartholomew attempts to use his ability to entrance his audience to calm the hermit, but the player doesn't realize in the moment that this ability can't be used in combat. However, the DM does rule that it will count as an attempt to parley, as it's non-aggressive. Since Bartholomew's charisma is 18, he gets a +2, and an 11 is rolled. The Mad Hermit calls off his panther and holds back to hear what they have to say, having been impressed by the music, something he hasn't heard in a long time. He gives them the opportunity to depart his territory and not return, but the body of their friend is forfeit. The group hightails it out of there rather than risk combat with the puma again. It's only after a while of traipsing through the woods that they realize that Youthful had the map to the oak. It is at this point they see a new figure stumble through the woods toward them, and George's new character, Zoran, a chaotic magic user, is introduced. A mage who wandered away from a caravan traveling to the keep and got turned around in the woods. He asks for their aid. The group readily takes him in upon learning that he has the ability to use sleep magic, at which point a heated debate begins, as Crag and Bartholomew wish to return to the Mad Hermit and exact revenge, but Malachi and Zoran just wish to get to the safety of the keep. During this bickering, Onion Buns decides that this group is too volatile and sneaks off. At this point, Bartholomew begins playing a tune, using his bardic ability to entrance Malachi and Zoran. Crag simply chews on some rations and watches with rapt interest. After a turn of singing, each figure makes their saving throw, but both fail, succumbing to the charm of the bard, who now suggests that they move fast to get that hermit and recover the map. Bartholomew knows he only has a few minutes before the charm wears off. Heading back, they do indeed spot the hermit, the puma perched in a tree ready to pounce on unwary prey. Zoran immediately casts his sleep spell, putting both right out. The group rushes forth to kill them while they are helpless. The charm wears off, however, and both Zoran and Malachi are enraged at being influenced by sorcery. Malachi punches Bartholomew in the face for the transgression, to which Bartholomew draws his blade. Crag uses the distraction to surreptitiously loot the hermit, finding 2 daggers, one of which being Youthful's fancy dagger found during the previous adventure, and a ring on the hermit's finger that adjusts itself to fit Crag's hand. Zoran and Malachi have an argument with Bartholomew, though it doesn't come to further blows. Tempers cool enough to agree to collect what spoils they can and return to the keep, where they can part ways. Attempts to skin the panther are botched, so the pelt becomes worthless. Meanwhile, Onion Buns has managed to stumble his way through the woods to the old watchtower on the map. Hearing drums, he hides in the foliage and watches as dozens of orcs arrive. Several orcs carry massive sacks tied together up to the top of the watchtower and leave them there. The drumming continues for a bit, until finally a red-scaled, winged lizard, a dragon, flies down, snatches the sacks in its claws, and flies away. The orcs cease their drumming and depart. Onion Buns, realizing that he knows where the road is based on what he knows of the area, slips away and returns to the keep. The rest of the group has devolved into bickering about the next course of action. At this point, contrived character entrance number 2 occurs as Neil swaps out Onion Buns for Eagle-Eye, a neutral magic user who it is decided was also a part of the same caravan headed towards the keep as Zoran was, and for some reason also wandered into the woods and got lost, also happening upon the same spot as the group in the vast wilderness. Hey, no one said contrived character entrances were meant to be hyper-realistic. They're just meant to get the character in as quickly as possible. Bartholomew insists that they search the area for the hermit's home, but Malachi and Zoran simply wish to get to the keep. Problem remains that they are lost in the woods. Following Youthful's earlier example, Bartholomew climbs a tree hoping to see over the tree line and get their bearings, but misjudges the height of the tree and is unable to see. As he is climbing back down, he slips and falls 30 feet, taking 3d6 damage. Rolling 6 against his 5 hit points, breaking his neck. Almost immediately thereafter, as the comedically contrived character creations continue, Marcel introduces Pyro, chaotic magic user.
Any similarity to Pyrus, the other player, Dean's previous magic user, is entirely intentional.
In the vein of embracing the absurdity, the group posits that there must be a magic user factory hidden in these woods, and future excursions to find random wandering mages should be undertaken. Unlike the previous 2, this magic user's reason for being here is that he's out of the keep and simply sorting through fauna and fungi for components. Relieved that they have a direction, they ask if this new face might guide them back. The chaotic magic user smiles and says sure, for a fee of 100 gold. The group is collectively offended and refuses to pay, to which Pyro states that he can't help them. Eagle-Eye suggests that he's willing to pay 20 silver for Pyro to simply point the way, to which Pyro suggests 20 gold, and they have a deal. Pyro then speaks in the chaotic tongue, hoping to connect with like-minded folk. Both Zoran and Crag understand, but do not respond. The group starts to get irritable and rowdy, prompting Pyro to prep his magic missile spell, just in case. He wants to attempt it subtly, while the others are bickering, but George, as Zoran, protests that there should be a chance to spot it, so a surprise roll is allowed to determine. There is no surprise, so the group is allowed to react to the casting. Zoran cries out that he's attacking with magic, and the group is on edge. Initiative is rolled. A tie. Zoran throws his dagger while Pyro casts the magic missile at him. Both strike simultaneously, the magic killing Zoran, while the dagger takes Pyrus down to his last hit point. Disgusted with events, Eagle-Eye and Malachi pick a direction and take their chances together. Pyro leaves to head back to the keep. Crag follows him, offering an alliance in the chaotic tongue and access to some deceased magic-using friends' spellbooks. This is appealing to Pyro, so a friendship is born. Crag also keeps the items pilfered off of the dead hermit, as well as the treasure map for future expeditions. Malachi and Eagle-Eye manage to find the road and make their way back to the keep. Then the session ends there. Well, that went a little bit sideways. I feel it's important to discuss what went down today, and be forthright here. Players didn't go home happy after this one, but they can't all be sizzlers. And the situation isn't so dire as it might seem. I assure you that player absences in upcoming recaps are strictly due to scheduling conflicts, so do not fear. This group plays well together and generally enjoys the antics. But I feel today's session is worth exploring as a cautionary tale. Player versus player situations are controversial for a lot of people, and for fairly good reason. It's very easy to take things personally and create bad blood within a group. Not everyone can handle player versus player situations, and many tables ban it outright. This table allows it, and will currently continue to do so. But it's an important reminder to everyone that the consequences of your actions are yours to bear. I can really only recommend PvP situations if your players are mature enough to handle it. Up until this point, the group has indeed handled their inter-character conflicts well, and have even enjoyed them as they've generated some laughs. Looking objectively at what developed here, the players got lost. This was no one's fault. They had a small chance of losing direction, 1 in 6, but it happened. Bumblestump's attempt to course-correct also failed, thus humorously shifting the blame to him, even though he objectively had the best chance of the team to reorient them. Such is the way of the dice. Their encroachment on the terrain of the Mad Hermit was entirely the will of the dice as well, as the DM determined which direction they went, and even the encounter with the Hermit wasn't a decision by the DM, it was a die roll. The chaotic bard, using his ability to charm his fellows into the action he wanted, was probably the first step downhill, and when it wore off, characters were rightly annoyed and reacted accordingly. Sadly, I believe the players were also aggravated at this development, and though they stayed in character, the bleed-over was apparent. The players held back a little, attempting to keep the peace, but this is where not being afraid to ostracize characters, note the emphasis of characters as opposed to players, who are a detriment to the group. The bard's actions crossed a major line, using magic to influence their minds, and there's no need to play nice in responding. Again, I stress, so long as it's between characters. That aside, spirits did lift, however, when the one sleep spell dispatched both of the enemies so readily. Crag stealing the loot while no one was looking generated some laughs from players, as that was on brand for him. The bard's fall from the tree was also the will of the dice. The DM gave the bard a roll equal to a first-level thief's climb check of 87%, with a chance to roll again and catch himself, as it was a tree with handholds. Both rolls failed. The PvP again reared its head between the two magic users, and while Pyro wasn't intending to use the magic missile on anyone, merely as a posture to prevent attack from a group that was clearly getting hostile towards him, again, it's to be pointed out, due to his own actions, Zoran decided it wasn't worth the risk, and took it as an aggressive action. From an outside perspective, the results of the interplay between them was actually kind of fun to watch. Even if it wasn't an epic high fantasy where much was accomplished on a heroic scale, local events were still developed. It was surprising and interesting, and even in moments of personal aggravation, the players maintained their characters well. And now, there's role-playing fodder should these characters ever cross paths again. Even Bumblestump running off yielded fruit, as the chance to encounter the orcs paying the dragon wasn't absolute. This isn't a module event, it's a 1 in 6 chance the DM has included to build the setting. But now they know a red dragon lives nearby and has an alliance with a group of orcs, possibly from the caves, possibly not. As the players each have a stable of 3 characters, there is some discussion about coordinating character complements in the future, but chaotic elements may yet turn up to keep people on their toes. I know this is a hot-button topic, but talk about it in the comments. How do you feel about character conflict? How do you deal with it? For my part, I quite enjoy character conflict, so long as it doesn't spill over into player conflict. It can be quite amazing to watch 2 characters come into organic conflict and drive the narrative in totally unexpected and new directions. But it only works if players can play within the context of the story and not take it personally. That's it for today, my friends. Join us next time as the Keep on the Borderland campaign continues.
Strange, minions. Normally I can see ahead, but some divine energy is blocking my sight. Something special seems to be brewing. I guess we'll have to find out together.